Police departments all around the world are choosing the right to remain silent and switching to electric motorcycles. The tactical advantage of being as quiet as a bee when approaching a crime scene can make all the difference between a major success or a total failure.
They cannot hear you coming at all. Silently creeped up on a drug deal in progress, and we were able to apprehend everybody. And I can remember the one guy, he said, "Man, I didn't even know you guys were there."
Tell me more about that. So I found that officer on LinkedIn. He's now retired from the San Jose Police Department, and he agreed to let me interview him and find out more about how silent motorcycles have totally changed recon and could even help to apprehend a drug lord.
My name is Paul Marshall, and I was a police officer, currently retired, but was a police officer for 25 years. So we were in a pretty downtown environment, and there were some parking garages on the campus that I worked at. And we had just gotten the Zero bikes, and I was doing a regular patrol through one of our parking garages, and I happened upon, two individuals that were clearly in the midst of a drug transaction. If we were to go through with a patrol car, it makes a lot more noise and everything. That wouldn't have been a possible scenario to be able to sneak up on them. But with the electric bike motorcycle, it was so stealthily quiet that, I was able to radio in what I had seen. They had no idea that I was there at all, because we could kill the headlight and everything. And so I called for some reinforcements backup that came. We were able to stop a drug deal right as it was happening. The one guy, he said something, he was just almost incredulous about it because he was looking at the motorcycle and he's like, "What is that thing?" And I said, "Oh, it's an electric bike, And he said, "Man, I had no idea you were even there."
When you think of electric motorcycles, you might assume they're just another measure for government agencies to enforce environmental standards. However, there's much more happening beneath the surface. A significant leap in technological advancement for patrolling and apprehending criminals. To me, an engine sound is part of the experience. A loud Harley rumble or the whistle of a Triumph engine is just so good, and I don't think I'm ready to give that up. But there's something happening with these silent motorcycles. EVs aren't just changing the policing game. Since the 2010s, the US military has made huge strides in recon thanks to electric motorcycles. For instance, global insurgent groups can employ swift, silent motorcycles in order to evade modern senses designed to pick up heat and sound signatures. Shout out to Chris Cappy, Iraq veteran and now military video journalist on Task and Purpose, for his video on how electric motorcycles are revolutionizing military operations, which is where I first learned about all of this. Trends in the US military often set the stage for similar innovations in police departments.
This is the most expensive and complicated motorcade in the world.
The United States Secret Service.
The United States Secret Service.
Historically, technology and strategies developed for military use, such as advanced surveillance tools, armored vehicles, and communication systems, find their way into civilian law enforcement. So whether we're talking about electric motorcycles to take down drug lords or enemies overseas, it would help to go back in time and talk about the other motorcycles used before we arrive to today's silent counterparts. According to the Harley-Davidson website, the first police motorcycle was delivered to the Detroit Police Department in 1908. The Evanston Police Department in Illinois purchased the first belt-driven motorcycle the same year. In 1909, the Portland Police Department allowed an officer to ride his own Indian motorcycle on patrol. Portland PD purchased 2 additional motorcycles at some point shortly after. In 1911, the California Berkeley Police Department is credited with creating one of the earliest official motor patrol unit thanks to their chief, August Vollmer. It wasn't only police departments that were giving two wheels attention. When World War I broke out, Harley shipped out 20,000 motorcycles overseas for the US military. They were mostly used to dispatch messages before radio communications became more reliable. Many of these motorcycles had sidecars, which could be retrofitted with machine gun mounts if needed, and they proved to be useful for more than just sending messages. Harley has just about been dominating the motorcycling scene for first responders since it started, but there have been some others too. The Kawasaki KLR 650, modified to run on diesel and used for recon, screening, and even direct action raid during the 90s in Desert Storm. I've got an interview with a retired Marine combat motorcyclist in the works detailing more about that. That will be in a video later this year. Some police departments have even used these diesel-run KLRs. Today, officers in Colorado Springs use a KLR 650. You'll see police in California and Hawaii using a BMW R1200 RT. Idaho and the Japanese police using the Honda ST1300s. Las Vegas using Suzuki Enduros. Daytona motor medics using Harley Road Kings. And of course, the Harley Electric Glide. And I'll tell you in a minute how you can win a bike very similar to these Harleys I just mentioned. Other electric bikes being used by first responders are the Harley Livewire and the Enerhica police motorcycles. Officer Ben Wolfe, head instructor at Police and Civilian Training Lock and Lean, actually designed an adventure bike program inspired by 9/11. If someone is injured and they're stuck past a bunch of rubble, how are first responders supposed to get to them? Very slowly on foot? In an ambulance? How is that supposed to go over obstacles like fallen buildings or crashed cars? Just this year, the Milwaukee Police Department is adopting this program that Ben designed. And he just taught the first wave of officers that are going to be trained on this curriculum he designed so that first responders can get to people quickly, no matter the terrain. So we've seen bikes go from cruisers to baggers, off-road and on, and to today's electric bikes, with police and military sharing in the adaptations to enhance their capabilities in crime prevention and emergency response scenarios. The crossover is largely due to the shared goals of maximizing operational effectiveness and safety. As a result, police departments frequently adopt these military-proven technologies to enhance their capabilities in crime prevention and response.
If you go in a situation, the first thing a person asks is, where did you come from? Or I didn't hear you comment.
Unlike their ICE counterparts, the silence of electric motorcycles make them great for the operations that require discretion, subtlety, and speed. Just to give you an idea of how quiet these bikes are, the average stock Harley can be about 100 decibels loud. MotoGP limits race bikes to be up to 130 decibels loud. But the Zero DSR, a common choice for police and military, is only about 50 decibels loud. That's the minimum sound requirement set by the NHTCA. For comparison, that's about as loud as an electric toothbrush. But the stealth isn't the only aspect of a silent motorcycle.
Being as quiet as it is, it was also a lot less intimidating for folks to get close to us. And we're weaving in throughout people on a campus and also in the downtown area anyway, because we patrolled all of that. We could get close to people and we didn't have to worry about the noise and jarring people's states of mind and things with, let's say if we were going through with a Harley Davidson, something like that, they're loud. Certain aspects of that can be beneficial, but also in a very tight, pedestrian-soaked environment, that's not always the best thing to have.
There are some specs that might make the Harley Livewire seem better than the Harley Electric Glide for police use. At 100 horsepower with 84 feet-pounds of torque, it can go 0 to 60 in 3 seconds. And when it comes to charging, it can reach 100% in 60 minutes. Sure, you're sacrificing some torque and iconic Americana styling, but you're saving almost 400 pounds when it comes to weight. When you're patrolling or weaving in and out of city traffic, this can make a huge difference in navigating tight spaces. Okay, so what are the problems with electric bikes? As far as loud pipes save lives, I cannot find any data that actually studied this. And a statement without data is just an opinion. But an opinion from someone experiencing this regularly may hold some weight. So here's an article by an injury lawyer that saw no correlation in loud pipes reducing accidents. And here's what Paul had to say about that.
Pro of having an electric motorcycle that is stealthily quiet, that can also be a con. And the reason why it can be that way is that, especially like for a university campus, you have the students walking around with, earbuds in and they're not paying attention and they're on their phone. And so having a silent motorcycle creeping up, you might have somebody who zigs when they should have zagged and they end up right in your path. So that's a con. The same time that we could be out in the downtown area and we're worried about traffic, because as a motor rider, you are constantly scanning and looking for, threat assessments in terms of just vehicles that might not see you. And so having a silent motorcycle in that aspect is also a little bit sketchy sometimes, because you don't have the vibration from the exhaust, you don't have the noise from the exhaust. So cars and things like that are just not able to recognize you as easily as they could if you were, riding a big old Kawasaki 1000, with rumbling exhaust or something like that. So that is definitely something that was also a con in certain aspects of a routine patrol for an electric motorcycle for police.
So even though there might not be data to give a solid conclusion on that, I can't deny many of your experiences who have mentioned a loud exhaust alerted your presence to a car that didn't seem to notice you before. Now back to these electric bikes. So they can accelerate almost instantly from silent idle with a ton of torque, offering the advantage of surprise in critical situations. Officers can also silently idle among crowds without drawing attention, allowing for discreet surveillance and response. Plus, electric motorcycles allow officers to exit from hidden positions during operations, maintaining the element of surprise and increasing the likelihood of successful interventions. As electric motorcycles gain popularity, their quiet operation means traditional signals like engine noise no longer alert other road users to your presence. For us civilians on the road, one of the most common causes of accidents is failure for another vehicle to see the rider. So if you're not loud, how else can you capture attention? Police have their red and blue lights and their sirens when they want to draw attention. What you can do is add on something that I've used for years. It's a kind of civilian equivalent to the flashing police lights. A legal one anyways. Besides wearing bright gear and a helmet, I use this light on the back of my helmet. And it comes in white and black. As you can see, it mounts directly to your helmet, and this bracket, you can have multiple ones across multiple helmets. It flashes when you're stopping or slowing down, wire-free, right out of the box. Use discount code DOODLE10 and I'll link to it down below. Why do police use such big bikes?
A motorcycle such as a street touring motorcycle, and Harley-Davidson has the capacity to carry our gear, to carry us comfortably. Those payloads help with carrying emergency medical equipment like AED, to have our computers. So if a call for service comes up, we can access data ports and see exactly who the complainant is. People can see that there's somebody on the way to potentially help them or diffuse a situation. We can get back to people quicker. And let's just say somebody overheats on a trail somewhere and first responders such as an ambulance or a fire truck can't get back there, or our officers can't get back there on foot. I can get there quicker on the roadway. I can get through traffic. It manages the trails extremely well because they're not super rustic, and we can offer our services to that person and render aid.
Electric Glide was the quintessential police motorcycles in the 90s. Despite some departments updating their fleets, many still use this model. The modern Electric Glide features an oil-cooled Milwaukee 8 114 engine and weighs almost 900 pounds, making it quite the load to maneuver in tight spaces or whip around city streets. As steep as the learning curve can be to handle this thing, it's not impossible. Motor officers undergo an 80-hour, 2-week program to learn how to handle them. I got a taste of it at the 3-day lock and lean course and learned to maneuver this Electric Glide around really tight spaces, and yes, even pick that up. You can see that in another video. I'll link to one of them or the playlist and a card up here in one of these corners. If I can do it, so can you.
So for us, we practiced on the old Kawasaki 1000s. I think they were the KZ 1000s. And they were probably 700 pounds, and they would get really hot as you're going slow because there's no air coming over the engine. The clutch would start to get a little spongy, and these are bikes that had seen previous service, so they're not the brand new ones because, as you know, you drop them a lot in training because it's a steep learning curve. So we use those, and then at the end of the course, we brought out our Zero bikes. And I think we had the dual sport Zeros at that time. And then we repeated the course on the Zeros, and it was almost like cheating, like having a cheat code, because it was so stinking easy to do the cone course in a Zero, because now you have a 300-pound, maybe even less than that, bike with amazing ground clearance, and you're able to zip by the cones without touching them so closely, and you could cut the turns. In fact, we tightened the cone pattern in a little bit as we use these. And we were training with our local police department, and they had never ridden electric bikes. So we put them on the electric bikes, and they couldn't believe it either. So it was actually pretty amazing.
We all know Harleys are loud and heavy, so it's important to note the skill set required to use them as a police officer is high, but maybe not the best option for stealth or the potential for a chase to go off-road, unless you're Sergeant Ben Wolfe.
So we use the motorcycle to actually check conservation boundaries where a squad car can't get to. I've used it to look for missing people. So we'll get a call that there's a missing person in a park setting.
Whoa.
And people are out on foot, or officers can't get their squad cars back into these trails, and guess what? I can.
As far as other electric brands, like the Harley Livewire or the Inerica police bikes, I've been seeing a ton of Zero motorcycles being used by police departments. You've got the FXP, which is the lightest bike in their police fleet lineup, making it perfect for patrolling parks, college campuses, or off-road areas, and great for navigating single tracks and hiking trails. The DSR XP, which is Zero's top-of-the-line patrol bike and has the longest range of 179 miles, making it ideal for a full day of patrolling. And then there's the DSRP, which is Zero's most popular patrol bike, but upgraded to feature longer range, more torque, and horsepower. You can also pay to upgrade to the DSRX performance capabilities through Zero's Cypher store. Personally, I am not a fan of remotely paying for features that are technically already there. They just need to be triggered after paying remotely. I don't know, what do you think? These electric bike options streamline the complexities of patrolling, as their design eliminates the need for gears, a clutch, or loud engine noise. Let's talk about the clutch for a second. Yes, Harley clutches are very hard and kind of painful after a long day of using it. Although retired motor officer Jerry Palladino told me about soft brake levers, and I totally forgot to get those installed before the walking lead class. Anyways, the clutch-free design of these bikes eliminate the need for managing the friction zone, preventing that pain, but also makes the learning curve way shorter for a new rider joining a police fleet. Plus, there are no exhaust fumes, so you can use EV motorcycles indoors or in closed spaces, like parking garages, malls, or pedestrian zones. Okay, so what about charging? Despite the growing popularity of electric motorcycles, the electric charging infrastructure still faces significant challenges, especially in rural areas. Many riders encounter issues like insufficient charging stations, long charging times compared to regular fueling, and inconsistent service across different areas. Because of that, some riders might prefer sticking with the ICE motorcycles. While it would be pretty cool to have a fleet of BMW S1000 RRs. Don't look at me, Long Beach did it first. It probably wouldn't be very cost effective. An electric motorcycle costs an average of $1 a day to maintain, instead of $20 to $40 for a Harley.
That's also another selling point too. Fewer maintenance costs. I mean, there's nothing really. And to set up a charging infrastructure is pretty cheap right from the outset. Whereas opposed to having a fleet of mechanics to work on your motorcycles that are combustion, that requires a lot more investment in tooling and things like that.
Going back to the KLR 650, this bike has maintained its iconic status for over 35 years with minimal changes. It's got a cult following and great reliability. Its fuel efficiency and low maintenance, thanks to its low compression and single cylinder, make it a cost-effective option for departments looking to maximize operational effectiveness while keeping overhead low. Now, with 40 horsepower and 39 pounds-feet of torque, you don't get it for its power, but mostly its rugged capabilities. This bike handles a variety of terrains with ease, making it ideal for both urban patrols and off-road pursuits. And the BMW R1200 RT. It delivers 125 horsepower and 92 pounds-feet of torque, providing quick acceleration and responsiveness handling that are essential for high-speed pursuits and agile urban navigation. Boxer engines have been long known for their low maintenance, shaft-driven design, and long service intervals. Its advanced features such as electronic suspension adjustment and dynamic traction control enhance stability and safety in varying road conditions. And it's comfy. Plus, there are federal grants available to help police departments cover the cost of switching over to electric bikes. With drastic police budget cuts in recent years, that could be huge. These savings arise from reduced fuel expenses, electricity being cheaper than gasoline, and lower maintenance requirements, as electric motors have fewer moving parts that need to be maintained and don't require oil changes. So would it be a stretch if I called this like silent motorcycles taking down drug lords?
The drug lord part, possibly, but the silent motorcycle definitely was the reason that whole enforcement action happened. There was just no way that a patrol car going through an enclosed parking garage could have, been so sneaky.
So whether you're trying to sneak up on a drug lord or random drug criminal, an enemy across the sea, or you just want something cheaper to maintain that doesn't get hot in traffic, maybe there is something to these silent machines. And if the big, classic, old two wheels just still calls to you, and you don't think you can handle them, I'm here to tell you that yes, you can. And if you don't believe me, watch this little girl get a taste of police motorcycle training on one of these big classic bikes right over here.